Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Paramahamsa Tri Radhagacharya Stotra Satya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charan Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandiviti, founder Acharyas, Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Dignified Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Takshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Syam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitam Syam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhami Sutidevi Vansakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyaeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Narayanam namaskritya Ram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of contact, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayan being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Shakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishveyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantharaj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vasalam pangum nagayate girim yatripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam yatripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class, continuing from Canto number 1, chapter 16, entitled Why Parikṣit, or How Parikṣit received the deeds of Kali. Okay, we're doing text 13 to 15. Tatra Tatropasrinvanaha Sva Purvesham Mahat Manam Pragiyamanam Cha Yashaha Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam Cha Paritratam Aśvatthāmno Astra Tejasaha Sneham Cha Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam Tesham Bhaktim Cha Keshabe Tebhyaha Parama Santushtaha Priti Ujrim Bhita Lochanaha Maha Dhanadi Vasamsi Dadau Haram Maha Manaha Tatra Tatropasrinvana Svapurvesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Chayasya Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam Cha Paritratam Aśvatthāmno Stratejasaha Sneham Cha Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam Tesham Bhaktim Cha Keshava Tesham Bhaktim Cha Keshave Tebhya Parama Santushtaha Pretyujrim Bhitalochanaha Mahadanani Vasamsi Tadauharan Mahamanaha. Tatra Tatropasrinvanaha Sapurvesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Cha Yashaha Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam cha paritratam Aśvatthāmno satejasaha Neham cha Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam Kesham Sakeshave Tebhya Parama Santustaha Prityudrimbhitalochana Mahadhanani vasamsi Dadoharan Mahamanaha
Tatra tatropashinvanaha
Tatra Tatropashinvanaha
Swapurvesham Mahatmanam
Sapurvesham Mahatmanam
Pragīyamanam cha yashaha
Pratkiyamanam cha yashaha
Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam
Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam
Atmanam cha paritratam
Atmanam cha paritratam
Aśvatthāmno stratejasaha
Aśvatthāmno satejasaha
Sneham cha Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam
Neham cha Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam
Tesham bhaktim cha keshave
Tesham bhaktim cha keshave
Tebhyah paramasantushtaha
Tebhya parama santustaha
Prityujrimbhitalochanaha
Prityudrimbhitalochanaha
Mahadhanani vasamsi
Mahadavani vamsamsi
Dadauharan mahamanaha
Tadoharan mahamanaha Tatra Tatra
Tatra tatra
Everywhere the king visited
Everywhere the king visited
Upasrinvanaha
Upasrinvanaha
Continuously he heard
Continuously he heard
Svapurvesham
Purvesha
about his own forefathers
about his own forefathers
Mahatmanam who were all great devotees of the Lord
who were all great devotees of the Lord.
Pragiyamanam
Pragiyamanam
unto those who were thus addressing
unto those who were thus addressing.
Cha
Cha
also
also
Yashaha
Yashaha
glories
glories
Krishna
Krishna
Lord Kṛṣṇa
Lord Kṛṣṇa
Mahatmya
Mahatma
glorious acts
glorious acts
Suchakam
Suchakam
indicating
indicating
Atmanam
Atmanam
his personal self
his personal self.
Cha
Cha
also Paritratam
Paritratam
delivered
delivered
Aśvatthāmā of Aśvatthāmā
of Aśvatthāmā.
yes Astra
Astra
weapon
weapon
Tejasa
Tejasaha
powerful rays
powerful rays
Sneham
Sneham
affection
affection
Cha
Cha
also
also
Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam
Vṛṣṇi Pṛthānam
between descendants of Vṛṣṇi
between descendants of Vṛṣṇi
and those of Pṛthā
and those of Pṛthā.
Tesham
Tesham
of all of them
of all of them
Bhaktim
Bhaktim
devotion
devotion
Cha
Cha
also
also
Keshave
Keshave
unto Lord Kṛṣṇa
unto Lord Kṛṣṇa.
Tebhya unto them
Unto them
Parama
Parama
extremely
extremely
Santustaha
Santushtaha
pleased
pleased
Priti
Priti
attraction
attraction
Ujrimbita
Ujrimbhita
pleasingly open
pleasingly open
Lochanaha
Lochanaha
one who has such eyes
one who has such eyes
Mahadhanani
Mahadhanani
valuable riches
valuable riches
Vasamsi
Vasamsi
clothing
clothing
Dadao
Dadau
gave in charity
gave in charity
Haran
Haran
necklace
necklace
Mahamanaha
Mahamanaha
one who has a broader outlook.
one who has a broader outlook.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Raghava Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Kṛṣṇa. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Aśvatthāmā. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vṛṣṇi and Pṛthā, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Kṛṣṇa. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them with valuable necklaces and clothing. Kindly repeat after me. Wherever the king visited,
Wherever the king visited,
he continuously heard the glories
he continuously heard the glories
of his great forefathers,
of his great forefathers,
who were all devotees of the Lord,
who were all devotees of the Lord,
and also of the glorious acts
and also of the glorious acts
of Lord Kṛṣṇa.
of Lord Krishna.
He also heard
He also heard
how he himself
how he himself
had been protected by the Lord
had been protected by the Lord
from the powerful heat
from the powerful heat
of the weapon of Aśvatthāmā.
of the weapon of Aśvatthāmā.
People also mentioned
People also mentioned
the great affection
the great affection
between the descendants of Vṛṣṇi and Pṛthā,
between the descendants of Vṛṣṇi and Pṛthā,
due to the latter's great devotion
due to the latter's great devotion
to Lord Kṛṣṇa.
to Lord Kṛṣṇa.
The king,
The king,
being very pleased
being very pleased
with the singers of such glories,
with the singers of such glories,
opened his eyes
opened his eyes
in great satisfaction.
with great satisfaction.
Out of magnanimity,
Out of magnanimity,
he was pleased to award them
he was pleased to award them
very valuable necklaces and clothing.
very valuable necklaces and clothing.
Purport. Kings and great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is a system from time immemorial, and Maharaja Parikṣit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all parts of the world as he visited those places. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, as the king means the king and his confidential associates. Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated, and therefore glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord, and vice versa. Maharaja Parikṣit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna had they not been connected with the acts of Lord Kṛṣṇa. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees. Paritranaya sadhunam. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories. And therefore Maharaj Parikṣit felt the presence of the Lord when he was glorified by his acts, especially when he was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. The devotees of the Lord are never in danger, but in the material world, which is full of dangers at every step, the devotees are apparently placed into dangerous positions. And when they are saved by the Lord is glorified. Lord Kṛṣṇa would not have been glorified as the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita had his devotees, like the Pandavas, not been entangled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All such acts of the Lord were mentioned in the addresses of welcome, and Maharaja Parikṣit, in full satisfaction, rewarded those who presented such addresses. The difference between the presentation of welcome addresses today and in those days is that formerly the welcome addresses were presented to a person like Maharaja Parikṣit. The welcome addresses were full of facts and figures, and those who presented such addresses were sufficiently rewarded. Whereas in the present days, the welcome addresses are presented not always with factual statements, but to please the post holder, and often they're full of flattering lies. And rarely are those who present such welcome addresses rewarded by the poor receiver. So Parikṣit Maharaj, as described here, as he was wandering throughout the kingdom, the subjects, those he was coming into contact with, were glorifying his forefathers or his his grandfathers, the Pandavas. Prabhupada elaborates how those who are connected with the Lord, Prabhupada makes the point that actually the Pandavas are glorified in history because they were great devotees of the Lord. Even though a devotee is reluctant to receive such glorification, but automatically such recognition or glorification comes. So there's a whole, previously, we probably see this much less nowadays. There were people in society who were, I'm not sure what the term is, they were like singers, they were they would be recounting or telling the uncommon and glorious acts or activities of great personalities. not for any particular material purpose, but actually out of genuine appreciation for the activities of such great personalities. There's a nice example that we find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when Madhavendra Puri was very renounced person, sadhu, and there are, of course, many pastimes in relation to Madhavendra Puri, who had, because of being very renounced, he had taken a particular vow of never asking anyone for anything. There must be a name to that vow. He was not even performing Madhukari. It's a very, anyone know what is the name of that? It's a particular name where one fully, completely depends on the Lord. And of course, he had... yes, Kanchana means one who is fully surrendered, no?
Is without any possessions.
Without any possessions, yes. But that there's a particular vow. In any event, Madhavendra Puri had received the favor of Krishna's darshan in Vrindavan, and it had been requested by the Lord after being installed on Govardhan. He had been requested to travel to Jagannath Puri to get some sandalwood, because the Lord, Vrindavan gets very hot, so he wanted that he bring sandalwood pulp, which at that time was available in Puri. I guess it must have been coming from, because Puri is by the ocean, so in those days sandalwood was especially coming from Malaysia. In any event, he was on his way to Jagannath Puri and he stopped in a famous place called Rimuna. Anyone been to Rimuna? Rimuna is in the first district of Orissa. Balasore, it's called Balasore district. And there's that small village, Rimuna, where there is deity of Gopinath. So because he had taken that vow, he went to the temple, had darshan, was very pleased to see the beautiful deity of the Lord. And he noticed how the pujaris were very nicely serving the Lord by offering a special type of milk preparation, kheer. They still practice, actually they offer the kheer in the evening. And he was, of course, witnessing all of those activities. And in his mind he was thinking, this kheer must taste very nice. But immediately he checked his mind, thinking that he had committed some offense, and immediately left that place, went close by to spend the evening. And then that same evening, the Pujari got a dream, and he told the Pujari, you go on the altar, because normally they offer the kheer, and then they remove it before they close the curtains. So the Lord in the dream told the Pujari that there is one pot of kheer still on the altar. You go and get that. They actually offer it in clay pot, and then you go out and you bring it to my devotee, who is close by. So like this, Pujari, of course, went and retrieved the kheer, and then he went out and he started calling the name Madhavendra Puri. And, and of course, he heard his name, and the Pujari finally delivered the pot of kheer. And then it's nice to explain that Madhavendra Puri, who was very renounced, and also who could understand that this was all taking place, it was still night. So he could understand that by morning time, this Pujari will tell everyone that the Lord came in my dream, and that and that he delivered this pot of kheer to his devotee. So he thought, let me immediately leave this place to avoid people coming and offering me respects and like that. So before the sun had risen, he had left Rimuna, and he was on his way to Jagannath Puri. So before Jagannath Puri, there's one place. I think it was in Kathak. Kathak used to be the capital, no? Where King Prataparudra, 500 years ago, used to reside. So as he arrived in this place, Kathak, I believe it was, the people had already heard about the whole incident. And of course, they began to honor and glorify him. So Prabhupada explains how, although a devotee of the Lord is not seeking to be glorified, but the Lord arranges, actually, or automatically that devotee becomes glorified. So this description is showing how in the Vedic culture, well, in the case of Parikṣit Maharaj, he was fortunate to have such great personalities as part of the family, and of course he himself was directly protected, as we know, in the womb. So he was also himself a very great personality. So Prabhupada explains how this is part of Vedic culture, actually, to recognize and to glorify such personalities. and to honor them. Yeah. So,
So Maharaj, the question is that every society has some leaders who are worth for glorification, but it's not really established in all society or ISKCON. Someone deceiving some GBC member, and I found this kind of receiving ceremonies like but the they wash the feet of the person, but then he gives some class as a as a first action, and I've never heard the person is introduced like this, like speaking some two words about the contribution of that person. So it would be, we think that it would be nice to introduce in every small or bigger ISKCON temples or ISKCON communities, if someone receiving uh, this kind of leaders, like the highest leaders, then introduce this welcome address ceremony, and properly understanding the function of the ceremony means they are such leaders like Parikṣit, they are not always there present, but they have this valuable contribution. And people don't know, devotees don't know their function, how they work. They just say, oh, there is a GBC, oh, there is a GBC man, or some ministers. So it would be, I think it would be nice if all these can have this program, but properly introduced, like really based on personal data and personal understanding, not general glorification. Oh, he's so long, he's the disciple of Prabhupada, he settled there. So, what do you think about? Is it similar than Kshatriyas?
I think some of this is, if I understand, you're mentioning that such type of such type of glorification, it would be nice if it was introduced within our society, where one, not in a general way, but mention some specific things about that particular individual. That's what you're mentioning, yeah. Well, I've heard, you know, I think it's happening. Maybe it could happen more, or it could be more elaborate, possibly. But I think generally, when important personalities are introduced, some mention is there about maybe what they have done, or how they're connected with maybe other great personalities like that. Um, of course, I know one time one sannyasi who was maybe less known, uh, then they will be requested to give some class, and so he had been requested to give class, but no one had introduced him, which of course was not proper. I mean, where he was from and what he had, um, you know, done previously. He was actually quite well educated, and quite a scholarly individual. Uh, he he was lecturing at different universities, and so um, definitely there should always be some uh, information provided regarding pretty well everyone who speaks, especially if they are having some prominent kind of role or position within the society.
And so
Yeah.
in the Vedic society, who was responsible to gather these welcome?
Yes. Um, that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, actually, in one particular, um, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, when when Sutta Goswami returns after hearing the recitation, after hearing the Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami, Parikṣit Maharaj. So he is welcomed in the assembly in Naimisharanya, and he's requested to speak. And Prabhupada, in one of the purports, explains how it is generally the elderly person, means someone who's like well recognized and most respected. He should be the one presenting and giving information about the speaker. So some basic guidelines Prabhupada was giving there. So generally, one who's already senior, who is also able to nicely present the speaker, and who's experienced in speaking also.
So it's a profession by which, for example, like a Shudra singer or poet, or not necessarily Shudra, but can maintain the family life like that, presenting this kind of glorifications, and then he get gifts. Is he maintained by this?
Well, there's, I think in the Vedic times, there were individuals who were like professional reciters, and who who would travel to different places, and that was like their um, practically speaking, a profession um, for which they were uh, rewarded in different ways also.
Like nowadays, the big singers, they are maintained by having concerts, and then they are singing not just entertainment, but valuable messages they have some.
Right. Yes, yes. There were all kinds of um, persons who had uh, different roles and positions within society to either through uh, either through singing or uh, or like uh, uh, what we call uh, storytelling. That's a whole art that we don't see so much today. Though there's a devotee. Um, there was a devotee, possibly still there, many years in New Vrindavan, and somehow he was very good at telling stories. It's a whole art, actually. I mean, speaking is a whole art. Um, he was he was like a natural storyteller. One can develop that art. Some people have more natural abilities to what do they call it? Uh, some particular name is there. Uh, I know that the name in French is troubadour. Um, yeah. It's a name we don't hear about so much because we don't see such persons around. Troubadour.
Oh,
Troubadour.
bard.
Huh?
I heard the bard. The word bard.
Oh.
Maybe.
Um, here is described as a French medieval lyric poet composing and singing in Provençal in the 11th and 13th century. Um, yeah, so there were professional people who
Yeah, ballader, bard.
oh, that's in your language, is it?
They are in English.
In English?
Yeah, synonyms of troubadour.
What's it? How do you spell it?
Simple bard in the mid. Do you see it?
No. All of these,
Yeah.
bard or vocalist, yeah, okay. Accompanist, artist, yeah.
Another question is that
Troubadour.
my general understanding that in different countries on the ancient time, they have leaders, kings have different type of religion to follow. Like some was worshipper of Lord Shiva, some was worshipper of the sun god. But here we mentioned, we read that all of them were Krishna worshipper. So it's like an extra gradation, or it's somehow it's at that time it was true.
Well, definitely during, it's like 500 years ago, um, when Mahaprabhu was present. So because of his physical presence, because of his activities, so many people got to know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although I'm sure there are other people who were following other teachings, but it must have been something similar 5,000 years ago when Krishna was performing his pastimes. So there was a lot, a lot more people were conscious, and yeah, when the Vedic culture is more in place, then there's when there are personalities like Yudhishthira Maharaj. I mean, we the whole Bhagavatam is describing so many Vaishnava kings who were followers of Lord Kṛṣṇa. So part of their activities is to introduce, you know, the worship of Lord Kṛṣṇa and establish temples. And so when you have leaders, kings, as it was in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Parikṣit Maharaj, who are promoting the principles of Sanatana Dharma as Vaishnavas, so therefore it's natural and expected that the majority of people, probably the vast majority of people, are Krishna followers.
Could you say that Sri Krishna established his being as Bhagavan in that area, that time, after by performing this Kurukshetra war and proving that whoever he support, that would be the ultimate winner. So is it like that? It was his acting for the general public and show his real power, because before that he was not really acting he was hidden a little. All the Mahabharata is about different kings, but sometimes he sometimes kills some kings, but always Arjun is there, Bhima, others. So this was his main action to spread Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, well, that verse is there in the Bhagavad Gita, that the Lord appears to reestablish the principles of Dharma. Dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he does that with the assistance of so many associates, especially here in this case the Pandavas, and of course himself as well, where he became, well, we hear of Krishna participating in the battle of Kurukshetra, but Krishna was busy in many other battles as well, isn't it? Yeah, which are maybe not. Battle of Kurukshetra was especially prominent, and that's the one we know about. But Krishna was also engaged in many other battles, I mean personally as well. So yes, the Lord's activities are to establish the principles of Dharma, and of course the essence of the principles of Dharma, which he explains to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, is that he is the Supreme Lord, and we are meant to engage in his service. Yeah.
Maharaj, I heard, I'm not sure if I remember properly, that after some of the acharyas was preaching in India, I think Srinivas or someone, but I don't remember exactly,
Right.
there was a king who became Vaishnava king, but he was so strong in nature that he forbid any other worship in his kingdom, or his, it's not a big kingdom, but
Right.
still.
Yes.
So it could be like a good conduct for a future Kshatriya, Vaishnava Kshatriya kings in the world, that they keep nation
Yes.
as Vaishnavas, like in nowadays there are some Christian
Yeah.
nation, Muslim nation, which are very strict.
Very, very straight. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
think that it's
That
how to say?
whether that's a good thing or
Yeah.
whether, yeah. Well, that's, you're referring, I believe, to when the three students of Srila Jiva Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, and Shyamananda Pandit, when they had been ordered by Srila Jiva Goswami to bring all the books that the Goswamis had written and whatnot to Bengal, right? So at that time, the books were stolen, as we know, and it was stolen by a king. That happened in the district of Birbhum, one of the districts here in Bengal. And anyways, the whole story is there, but the end story was that the king came in contact, who was it? I think either Srinivas
I
or,
think Srinivas.
yeah,
Because
Srinivas.
Srinivas left there to find exactly the
Yeah,
books,
so-
and he found that the king is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the king, he had one Pandit reading the Bhagavatam every day, and then Srinivas had come there, and he was not very happy. Or anyways, so he ended up starting to give Bhagavatam class, and then the king became a devotee. And so the king, actually, I heard that there was, everyone was forced more or less to become a follower. And that there was, yeah, there was some fine was there or something if you didn't chant, whatever.
And one last question could be, how the modern Kshatriyas would have treasure to give this gift, so how they get personal or values and personal treasure, or using the nation's treasure or values to give some gifts to this kind of persons. So what is the system?
Well, that's all connected with how at Treasury we were discussing about the 7 constituents. So the king was independent to just use part of the treasure for donating, because that was very much part of the activity of a king. He would reward brahmanas, he would reward different people in society. And so I think as a king, he was quite independent to utilize properly.
Like the modern kings also have some independent income or income from the government. They are maintained and they are given enough to maintain
Right.
these, high class standards.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are guidelines that are given actually in some of the Vedic literatures, like the Kautilya Arthashastra. All kinds of details are there. But the king was having free hand pretty well to distribute the wealth to those who.
So that you will work out also for the next education system for Kshatriyas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all part of it.
It's important how to deal with values and not to become polluted by,
Well, that's why there's a need for learning what is there in the Shastras. The guidelines are given in the Shastra, and one who received that proper training and education, therefore, will become qualified to take up that particular responsibility. Okay, yeah. Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.